Thermodynamics, we already talked about it. Energy can be changed from one to another, but it cannot be created or destroyed. E equals mc squared relates energy to matter. Second law says a closed system unaffected by outside factors, entropy measured disorder always increases. Same thing we just talked about. And this is the last one. Last Thursday I had a book called The Grand Design by Stephen Hawking. And he goes, it's not a big book, but he goes through and kind of gives you the history of this, that, and the other, and all these things. He finally comes down to the fact, and I'm going to quote him extensively here. Just bear with me, because what he says is very enlightening, was to me. Even the most ardent opponents of a creation by God agree that the universe appears to be designed for a purpose. Their latest idea, based on nothing, is that since our universe seems designed to support life, we must be in the only universe of an infinite number of universes that can support life. In other words, we're the only one of an infinite number that can support life. That's why we're here. But there are an infinite number of other universes where the constants are different and life doesn't exist. That would be laughable if it wasn't really something that they believed. And since he wrote it, everybody started talking about it. And even Lawrence Krauss, the guy who was talking about, said it's inevitable based on quantum mechanics that there will be multiple universes. Of course, he doesn't explain how he came up with that. Nobody does, but they say it. Okay, let's move on here. Anybody know who Richard Dawkins is?
Yeah,
Okay, you've heard of him, I guess.
leading atheist in the world.
Yeah, he's what we call the leader of the new atheists. New atheists are people who are evangelical atheists. They don't believe in God and they don't think you should either. And they're going to do everything they can to keep you from believing in God. And I don't know why a man gets in that position, but he's there. You know, Ben Stein asked him in the movie Expelled. Did y'all see that movie? Anybody see it? I suggest you see it. He interviewed all these scientists and asked them, because he believed that God created things, and he asked Richard Dawkins, after talking to him at length, how he felt. He said, Dr. Dawkins, is it possible that God created everything? Is it possible? And he sat there for a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds, and said, no. He said, well, why not? He goes, because there's no God. So their argument isn't a reasoned argument. It was the fact that there's the big heading at the top of there is no God. And anytime you get into trouble, go back to that, because that's the answer. And that's the truth. This is how. But here's what he says. In his book, The God Delusion, Richard Dawkins writes, one of the greatest challenges to human intellect has been to explain how the complex, improbable appearance of design in the universe arises. In his book, The Blind Watchmaker, he writes, biology is the study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. They all think it looks like it's designed. Even the almost ardent atheists that are scientists say it looks like it's designed. We can't figure out how it's like that. There's a whole bunch of people. I'm going to give you 3, but there's probably 10 or 12 famous atheist scientists. Paul Davies, a well-known English physicist, writer, and professor, said there is now broad agreement among physicists and cosmologists that the universe is in several respects fine-tuned for life. He's an atheist. Of course, so is Dawkins. Now here's what Dawkins said in his book, Grand Design. He writes, such calculations, and he talked about some mathematical calculations, show that a change of as little as 0.5% in the strength of the strong nuclear force or 4% in the electric force would destroy either all carbon or all oxygen in every star, and hence possibility of life as we know it. And hence destroying the possibility. Change those rules of our universe just a bit, and the conditions for our existence disappear. Atheist. Supposedly brilliant scientist. You know who he is. The guy that's in a wheelchair, and he doesn't even talk. I think somehow he reads his mind, or he does something. But I mean, I'm watching a series on TV, tonight, PBS, no, last night.
He breathes,
I recorded it, so,
I think he breathes through a tube.
Yeah.
With the voice simulator.
yeah. But anyway, this is what he wrote in that book, all right? Moving on real quickly here. Hawking has stated that he is not religious in the normal sense, and he believes that the universe is governed by the laws of science. Interesting question, though, where they come from. The laws may have been decreed by God. This is what he said at one time. But God does not intervene. In an interview, Hawking said he believed in heaven as a myth, believing that there is no heaven or afterlife, and such a notion was a fairy story for people afraid of the dark. So I guess you all are afraid of the dark, right? Sometimes I have been. Okay. In 2011, when narrating the first episode of American television series Curiosity on the Discovery Channel, Hawking declared, "We are each free to believe what we want, and it is my view that the simplest explanation is there is no God. No one created the universe. No one directs our fate. This leads me to a profound realization. There is probably no heaven and no afterlife either. We have this one life to appreciate the grand design of the universe." Interesting use of the word design. "And for that, I'm extremely grateful." He's grateful to whom? Or to what? I mean, he's really all aboard. He is a brilliant person, but and people take him seriously, but I don't know if his thinking process is really that good. And here's the last one. We live in one universe in which life is possible. But if the universe were only slightly different, beings like us could not exist. What are we to make of this fine-tuning? Is it evidence that the universe, after all, was designed by a benevolent creator? Or does science offer another explanation? Most of the fundamental constants in our theories appear fine-tuned in the sense that if they were altered only modest amounts, the universe would be quantitatively different and in many cases unsuitable for the development of life. The emergence of the complex structures capable of supporting intelligent observers seem to be very fragile. The laws of nature from a system that's extremely fine-tuned and very little in physical law can be altered without destroying the possibility of development of life as we know it, were it not for the series of startling coincidences in the precise details of physical law. It seems humans and similar life forms would never have come into being. They all know this. Every one of them. And he's kind of one of their gurus. They'll tell you this because they almost have to, because it's so obvious when you get into the science. One more thing about him. In his book, The Grand Design, Stephen Hawking infers that this is the most likely scenario. We live in one universe in which life is possible. But if the universe were only slightly different, beings like us could not exist. What were we to make of this? I just read that, okay. Then he concludes, there seems to be a vast landscape of possible universes. Universes in which life like us can exist is rare. He's saying, since it looks all designed like God did it, and we know there's no God, let's come up with so many universes that at least one of them is good. That's it. This is the latest scientific thinking. I tell you this because your kids aren't going to hear this. Your grandkids aren't going to hear this. They're not going to hear. They can read his book. His book is full of gobbledygook. Top of the circles, gets to the end, and says it's a multiverse. That's it. Why do many scientists that study cosmology believe that the evidence leads to an intelligent designer? This is happening, folks. People don't realize this, and you can get in a group of a bunch of agnostics and atheists, and they'll deny this. They say that all scientists don't believe in God. They don't mean all, but they mean the vast majority. And I say to them, I keep in touch with the Discovery Institute. Scientists are moving in our direction because exactly of these things I just talked about. And your grandkids aren't going to hear this yet. By applying logic and reason and probabilities to the facts that science has uncovered, chance alone has no pathway to creating the complexity that we see. When scientists and the media tell you how everything you see came into existence, be skeptical. Be confident. you are on the correct side of facts. And I mean you're on the correct side of the facts. You're not on the correct, you're on the correct side of the belief. But you're also on the correct side of facts. The people who are pushing the atheistic view have a reason. And they're going to push it whether they find the facts say it or not. Here's what I want you to think about. We'll talk about these three things. We'll talk about in more detail as we go along in the series. Fine-tune the universe. The four forces in the universe seem to be of the value that is designed for the existence of intelligent life. Intelligent design. The complexity of the physical universe indicates that systems are designed for the existence of life. Irreducible complexity. Forms of life as minute as bacteria. Do you all know how small bacteria is? I mean, microscopic to the point where they've seen it, but they can barely see it with the best microscopes they got, but they have. They have systems that are so complex they could not have developed by chance, by Darwinian evolution. Okay? These are three kind of main frames of the intelligent design movement. And what this says is, well, what I'm telling you is, these three things have been scoffed at, but never explained by people who don't believe it. I don't know if y'all have ever thought about it, or I'm sure you've thought about, contemplated the universe and all that, but did you ever know that science is misleading you? And I don't say science, I say scientists are misleading you. And the people who have the ear of the media are people who are going to tell you what they think, not what they know. Next time, science, God's big reveal. The biblical view, is there science in the Bible? And now I'm going to attempt to show you something that